basically, I know that it's for a long time it's been quite a historic community. I think it's more based around the village, well, in my opinion. I know that a lot of people that live nearby like to come down and just take time out.
My parents live right opposite Sandyman Strand here, and it's a fantastic facility to have right in the city of Dublin, really.
Personally, I really like it because I've grown up around here, and I like to come and meet my friends or exercise.
Leary over here to the right, and Killiney Hill, and when you go out by the Pigeon House, which is the ESB electric station there, you can look back over the Dublin mountains, and there's an amazing view over there as well.
It's more the view and the bay, and just enjoying the fresh air, and even on a bad day it's nice to kind of choose your spirits. So that's it. It's just really more personal, had more of a personal history than anything.
No, it hasn't really changed in the last few years. There's a Martello Tower up here on the right, which unfortunately is closed. They restored it as a cafe, but for some reason they haven't opened it again. It would be lovely facility to have on the coast.
It's just a lovely. You forget you're in the middle of the city. I'm not as close. I'm about 10 minutes drive away or whatever. But you literally forget you're in the centre of Dublin. So it's just I love the sea, and it's great to have it. It's a really fantastic amenity, I think, it's Dublin.
The tide goes way out. You can walk for miles out. You can go out around the Pigeon House and out onto the lighthouse. Dogs as well. It's a great place to bring dogs and children. It's very safe because the water is very shallow here, so children can play in the water. Changed in the last few years. There's a Martello Tower up here on the right.
I know that it's
which unfortunately
for a long
closed.
time it's been quite a
they
historic
restored it as a
community.
cafe.
I think it's more based around the village, well, in my
again. It would be lovely
I know that a lot of
facility to
people
have
that
on
live
the
nearby
coast.
like to come down and just take time out.
We live right. My parents live right opposite.
It's a
Sandyman
fantastic
Strand here.
place to bring dogs, and it's just a lovely city.
And then I pressed the shell close to my ear and listened well.
Poetry collection. And the main aim of the project in the beginning was to create an audio book, but unlike other audio books in the past where it's mainly been about a sort of laptop style book where you press or you use a sort of your finger to move around the page, or it's been a child's book that you press a button and a really, really bad quality sound comes out like a sheep bleating. The aim was to keep the tactility of a real book, and but with a good quality audio that went with it. So I wanted to compose a piece of audio that related to a particular piece of text, and decided that a good place to base this project around would be the Lindenhall Library. And I approached Lindenhall Library and said that I wanted to take either a short story or a song or a poem and rework that piece of text into an audiobook. And after some kind of emails and discussions, they agreed, and I went and looked through their collection and chose The Shell by James Stephens. And this poem, one of the other things that I wanted to do with this project was use a piece of text that related to a location in Ireland that I would journey to and source materials for this piece from that actual location. And the idea being that you would take a piece that's in a collection in a library that is usually sitting on a shelf, go into the world outside of this library's walls, bring back material that you then rework this text to build that connection again from the library to the outside world. So so I did this, and I went to Sandymount Strand and took field recordings, soundscape recordings of the beach. Also took recordings of people on the beach who were at Sandymount Strand asking just little kind of snippets of why they come here and what the beach means to them. And also took photographs and collected objects and used that to try and give me a better sense of what the poem might be about, or what the themes in the poem might be. And in this poem, Stephen describes picking up a shell on Sandymount Strand beach, and when he picks up the shell, he hears the sound of this desolate, windswept beach, which he describes has no human presence, and describes all these quite kind of sinister imagery and sound as well, of these whirling, wishing seaweeds. And so I wanted to get that across in the audio as well as the book. And when I was trying to think of what kind of book would be appropriate for this sort of project, I was pointed in the direction of the National Art Library's collection of artist books, which are more kind of experimental, interactive books with things that you pull out and things that you can unwind and parts that you maybe even wear. So I started to create a box that was a bit more like an interactive object, but still had the quality of a book in that it had text that you read throughout the piece. And I also started to compose the audio. So when I was thinking about how to approach this poem, I wanted in the poem there's this kind of sense of this other world that is very removed from the world that we have now, and I wanted to get that across in my piece. So it starts off with quite realistic sounds of Sandymount Strand, and as the piece progresses, you get these sort of morphed human voices that come over, maybe like the wind or something like that, that morphs into the poem and the words of the poem. And similarly, as you go through the box, you start off with shells and things like that you would see every day that have parts of the text imposed on them, or maps with parts of the text imposed on them with Sandymount Strand. And as you go through the box, things start to become much more abstract, and you get these morphed beings that are human, shell, bird, all morphed into one. So that was the kind of creative aim of the book. But it also related to I tried to think about some of the ideology and the place that Stevens might be exposed to at the time that he wrote The Shell. He wrote The Shell in 1909 on Sandymount Strand in Dublin. So I thought a bit about how that was the end of the Enlightenment period, and this idea that this fear of the mystical, or even this rejection of the mystical, and this faith that science will hold the answers and actually create a better world for humankind. And there's this theme throughout the poem that a world without humans it's not a place. It's a desolate, kind of windswept place that has no night and day. So I wanted to try and explore that in the images that I had. So it was exhibited at the Linnenhall Library on the 23rd to the 28th of August. I asked members of the public when they went to see the piece to give feedback, and that was interesting to see what people took from it. A lot of the time people said that they seemed to notice the soundscapes and how relaxing the soundscapes were, but there was also some very interesting feedback about it being an immersive thing. And I think that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to take a piece of text that, Stevens isn't a very well-known writer anymore, but he was in his day. I wanted to take a piece of text that was maybe just sitting on the shelf, not many people looking at it, and bring it more into the foreground and make it a more immersive, multi-sensory experience.